So ever since I got one of these 360 cameras, which was several years ago, and then upgraded to this guy, I have wanted to be able to capture those 360 worlds and actually bring them into the computer, convert them to 3D scenes. And I haven't found a good way to do that until now. Recently found software that's been out for a while, but had not been on my radar. Did not see it till recently. I'm going to show you in this video how you can get your 360 images into a 3D model form and bring that into a scene of Iclone, so you can quickly get to rendering your animation with very little fuss, tremendous speed. So that's the key to this process, is creating environments quickly and fast and relatively accurate. Not the highest quality, but relatively accurate and creates an overall feeling for the scene itself. So let's check it out.
So one of the first things you're going to need is an actual 360 photograph. So this is one taken from the GoPro Max. And you want to go in and download this program called Walkabout Worlds Pano Modeler. So this is under beta, so you'll need to sign up down below. Just enter your email in, sign up to that, and you'll get an email with a download zip file. And you'll unzip that file wherever you want, basically. So this is, you don't have to install anything. You just put this image inside a unique folder. So I created one called Kitchen Build, and you drag that entire folder onto this .bat file. And it'll kind of run the program, open it up. And first thing you want to do is check the photograph and then say straighten image. I had a lot of trial and error with this the first time, so I did not go through this process the very first time. You control and left click to create the start point, and then control and left click to do the end point. So you want to go through, and anything vertical, you want to align this. This is going to straighten up your 360 and allow you to create the 3D model from it. So we want to save fixed image, and you'll see it straightens everything up. If you don't do this, you're going to have a lot of problems. So next step is to go to Walkabout Editor. This will open up a new window and new app, so you can maximize this and just kind of move this back into the grid. Scroll in and out to zoom. And then this is a plan view. So you basically want to do control and left click on each of the bottom corners of the room. And these can be moved afterwards, so just kind of get them in a approximate location, go around the room, snap where you think the corners are, and then you can adjust them in in an elevation view later. So I just kind of rough these out here, because you got to kind of snap behind cabinets and snap behind objects, furniture, whatever might be in your way. So just kind of guess at it for now. You generally know the room shape. Like I know it goes back in behind that refrigerator. So all right, now you can go to the 360 view here, and you can see you're kind of got an outline on the walls here. So left click at these points at the intersection down here, and you can slide those around to different locations. Now if you go to the top, you can left click on the actual point and drag up to set the height of this. So I'm just going to go all the way up, and it sets the entire room height. So there are ways to have drops and ceilings and things like that, but if you press Alt and left click, it'll create a new point at the top of the wall. If you can click Control and left click, it'll create one at the bottom. So if you're trying to create a top node, do Alt, and then you just kind of go around and move these into your position. This is where if you didn't do the straighten command, you would have a lot of difficulties aligning the tops and bottoms of all these walls all the way around. Everything would be off skewed at some weird angle. So this is looking fairly decent. Some of these areas are hard to get the shape. So you kind of you can line up the line. If you can't tell exactly where the corner is, just kind of line up the line of where you think it might be, kind of the top edge. All right, so we pretty much have this in place. Because we know where the top point is, it automatically sets the bottom point based on perspective, which is nice. So if you have other areas that are are aligning, it'll automatically line up the bottom of that. So now we want to create some objects in here. We want to do one for the refrigerator and one for the oven. Okay, so to create a new piece of furniture, we left click and drag up to the top, and then click, and then control click to add the bottom corner. Now we can take these and left click and adjust them where we want. Now if you control click again, it's going to create a new point based on where you left off. So sometimes you can click and things will be at kind of jumping from the wrong position. So whatever's blue is like active, and it's going to create a new point from that blue active plane, basically. So just kind of align the corners around. That looks good enough. And so now I'm going to move on to do the stove. So we'll do the same thing, new furniture, left click and drag up from the floor, and then do control and click to create the face. And then you can see we'll get this blue line. That's based on where our next control click is going to create a line based on wherever that blue highlighted line is. So in a case like this, you may want to do an alt click to select the top back corner of the stove after you get this aligned. But in this case, I'm going to do control click, and you can see that it is like reversed. Basically, I didn't follow my own advice, so you got to kind of unreverse these angles there and line it up, and that looks pretty good. Because this turns out so rough, you don't have to be so precise with everything. Just kind of get it to match up as best you can. So now we want to create a new furniture piece and put it where the cabinets are. Now, if you notice, there's a little arrow on that box, and it's in the bottom left corner. So you want to, when you're picking things, the icon design is not the greatest in the world for that initial new furniture element. So just go around the room and add all these pieces. Just keep control clicking the base, and then you can do an alt click to get the top. You can see there's a lot of stuff on the counter, so it's hard to kind of get things exactly where they should be, but you could kind of guess and just align the best you can. That's what happens if you do a control click when you think you're doing an alt click. You get the floor point way up in the air. So just align that a little bit and go back and check some of the alignment of other areas. You can see there's kind of a roughing out. The toe kick doesn't really align, but that's okay for what we're trying to do, and create a very quick 3D model from this 360 image. That's gonna be fine. Once you have all the pieces like you like it, go press exit and then go up to the top left and hit that little 3.5 floppy disk for the save icon, and it's going to go through and build and save that. That's important that you do that before you try to export the model or anything like that, or publish the model. You actually need to save that first. So I just went back and did a couple of adjustments here, and then I'll show you how to export this model. Okay, so go to exit and hit save again, and you can check whether it's saved in the command line. You'll see it says scene build as the last command there. So once you've done that and you've got everything set up the way you want it here, I'm not going to build the upper cabinets. It's a little tricky to do that, so I'm going to hold off on that for now since I'm just starting with this app. I'm going to try to build this microwave though, so if you do add, create shape, add box, it'll create like a free floating box in the room, and you just gotta kind of move this up into position to match where this microwave is here. Just kind of guess where the back of it is, and that looks fine. So we'll go back and save this file. Once you do that, you can check, it says scene build, and then you can, one last look, exit, include top. We want to include the ceiling. This doesn't always work. I'll show you another way to make sure that that does work. And then click the 3D generate model, publish model, super high, and say OK. It's going to go through the process. If you have not saved the model first, this won't work. So you actually have to build the model, save it. So we'll do copy to clipboard. We'll go to Chrome, paste that in, and you can see that the model is here. It's actually the first time you can tell that it's 3 dimensions. So you can see back in the background there's that microwave box. It's kind of puts it off on its own. I don't know, I'll figure that out later, but the refrigerator and the counter looks pretty good the way it built, and the oven projects out a little bit. So there's a little bit of depth to this, and it maps all the texture to the 3D model. You can see we're missing the ceiling, so we'll go back out to the model and see if we can get that back in. So if underneath the save icon up there at the top left, there's a more button. So if you select that more button, and at the bottom it says include, say all tops and say OK and save, and then we'll build this again here. Just check everything once more, say super high and OK. It's going to run through that publishing command. And now we can copy this to the clipboard, go to Google Chrome and paste that in. And then once you get past the face and the normal flips, then you've got your ceiling there. So that works. So now to get the 3D model, we need the OBJ file with the material file and the texture. So it creates a model folder and it dumps that file into that folder, so with all the associated stuff. So if you open up Sketchup and go to SimLab, OBJ importer, which is the one I found to be the best, find that kitchen model and import that file into Sketchup. So it brings it in. Of course, it's got a weird rotation to it, so you got to fix the rotation. And the microwave is floating off to the side and about 3 times the size of the room, but that's okay. So we'll put this in parallel projection, put it in right mode, and we'll rotate. Okay, so now that we got that rotated, we'll go ahead and align it up to the origin point, because I like to do that kind of thing. Probably not necessary, but if I can find it. There we go. And then rotate it to an axis. This just makes things easier in the future. So I'm going to change my styles to turn the profile off because I don't want to see that line through the model. And there we have it. There's the outside of the model. Now I'm going to delete this one face because I don't want to have this showing up. So if you double click into the actual model, you can go deeper, or you can actually explode the model so that the geometry is right there. It's not all grouped together. So explode that, then you'll be able to edit it. So I went inside here and I want to change the flooring because I have that little kitchen island that's overlapping stuff. So I'm going to use the Artisan plugin. This allows me to paint a material to any kind of mesh. It's that one with the paintbrush and the green icon there. So I can take any kind of material and just paint it directly onto the floor mesh. So I'm going to go around the room and do that, and then I'm going to adjust the scale of that material. And I'll show you when I'm done. Okay, so I have the whole floor covered. So now I'm going to adjust the scale of this flooring. And that looks fairly good right there. So you can see the walls of this room have triangles and squares on a hidden geometry, basically like a mesh created for that. But the mesh is not nearly as dense as it would be if you used photogrammetry to try and recreate this room. You would have a ton more vertices and points and things like that. And the cool thing about this is that those walls are actually like 2D planes. So if I was to create a rectangle around this opening just to make it black so I don't have to see anything beyond it, I can actually snap to that wall and it creates a plane that's exactly in plane with that wall. You can see it's so in that's overlapping the Z. So I'm just going to make this a group and extrude it out just like 1/2 inch, something like that, just to quickly get it to block out the material beyond, just so it looks like a dark room beyond. All right, so we got that. I'm going to do the same thing for the other side there. So now we've got kind of our scene, our stage here that we're going to use inside Iclone. So that was pretty simple and easy, and pretty awesome how that whole thing came together just from a 360 photograph, and the textures and materials look pretty good as well. So we'll do file, and we'll save this, and then we'll export this as an FBX file so that we can bring this into 3D Exchange. All right, so we'll do export 3D model, and we'll find a place to save this guy. So if you go to options, you want to basically export texture maps and say export. So it's going to run through and do this process. Depending on how big your amount of geometry is, will determine how long it takes, obviously. But this didn't take that long. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and open Iclone just to get this program open so that we can have it available once we do send over our mesh from 3D Exchange. So we'll open that, and then we'll also open 3D Exchange. I'm going to drag this FBX. First, I'm going to take all these materials and cut them out of the folder and put them directly next to the FBX file. And then I'm going to take the FBX and drag it in and say OK. So it's going to load it into the Exchange with no materials on it. There's a couple ways you could add the materials to this object. You can take the you can take the image and drag it onto it, or you can find the material, double click the diffuse layer, go to that PNG file, and just load that in. It's going to come into the thing. The other way is to just click the PNG file and drop it directly onto the mesh material that you're trying to color, like the floor here. So I'll take this and just drop it right on the floor, and it'll come in correctly. So now we have our model. I'm just going to select everything and make sure we've got Iclone open, and I'm going to say apply to Iclone. And that's going to take this model and send it over into Iclone, so you can see it shows up there. So I don't really need to save this. So now we've got our 3D model inside of Iclone. Now the colors look a little washed out here, and I don't know quite how to fix that yet, but I'm going to play around with that a little bit. It does look a little bit washed out, but when you use the iRay rendering, it cleans it up a bit, makes it look a little bit better. So I'm just going to add a couple of lights to the scene just to add some depth to it, and see how that looks when I do an iRay. It's just pretty good. So I'm going to tweak the lighting a little bit here and there. But ultimately what we want to do is bring in a character. So I'm going to grab this guy here, and I'm going to bring him into the scene. You'll see some scaling issues. So we have this guy, but the room is way too small. So I'm just going to select this room mesh, and I think it's a problem of converting from inches to meters or centimeters or something like that. I probably had some setting wrong, but I'm just going to scale this up and probably move it to where he's basically in the cabinetry. That'll give me a good point to test whether the scale is correct or not. So that looks about right. So I'm going to add a motion plus, just something quick and dirty to this guy here. We'll add this animation, which has an audio track to it, and we'll rotate. He doesn't look quite right there, so we'll get him to rotate around towards the camera. There's a couple hotkeys, W and E, will allow you to move him around and rotate as well. So move him back in the corner there and rotate him so he's facing us. All right, so I rotated him when he was not at the 0 animation point, so I'm going to go through and delete this key, and I'm going to go back to 0, and I'm going to rotate him from the 0. Okay, so now he will be correct and not sliding around. So create a camera here, and I'm just going to start. I'm at the 0 point in the timeline, so I'm going to start kind of at a wide angle and go in as the animation completes. So it looks like the animation stops about right there. So here I'm going to go in, and you can see there's a little bit of depth to the scene, and it was created very quickly. You could, use that as a foundation to build out the scene a little bit more accurately, with more detail, adding higher res images and stuff to your
so if that is the
material maps.
case,
But
then we would
to
need
create
to
something
take
like
it up
this
with the
this
users and
quickly
the fans.
is really nice to have that ability to create 3D models from your actual 360 images. So I'm going to adjust a little bit on his hand here because he's going inside his shirt. And you can see his other fingers are a little messed up there, but just for speed of this, I'm not going to try to fix all that stuff. So let's do an eye test here. You can see it's really dark in this, so I want to add a key light for him. I'll do new light, point light. And I'll use W hotkey to bring up the gizmo. I'll just kind of move this until I can see it. There we go. I'm going to tone this down a bit. And adjust the fall off a little bit. Because I don't want it to light the whole scene. I just kind of want it to light him. And then we'll turn that object visibility off. So it's just emitting the light, but you can't actually see the light bulb. And that looks fairly good. And I noticed that I actually animated this light. So I want to click it before I move the timeline. And remove all object animation from that light fixture. So that light's not going to move around. Let me turn that back off. All right, cool. So we'll do a render of this directly from Iclone, and then I'll do a rendering of this from Iray. Iray takes a lot longer, so I'm probably not going to do the entire animation. And you can see this one's pretty fast. Once we get it here. It's like quarter speed or something like that. So here it is, exported. You can see that the colors are not super great on the 3D model behind him, but it does give a sense of where he is. He's in the kitchen.
And they are the reason that we do what we do here. It is all fairly simple. You do see it, right? So why turn this around? There is no need to make heads or tails out of it.
All right, now here's the Iray version.
Okay. So if that is the case, then we would need to take it up with the users and the fans, as they are the ones that know what they need. And they are the reason that we do what we do here.
All right, thanks for watching. Hope you found some value in this, and subscribe. Thanks.